Welcome to the Exit Rich podcast, where the leading authority on buying, selling, fixing, and growing companies, Seiler Tucker, is dedicated to helping you find the path to retire rich and move on to your next adventure by exiting your business for the desired dream price you deserve. Get ready to exit rich with your host, Seiler Tucker.
And welcome to another episode of Exit Rich. You're in for some great golden nuggets. How many of you ever thought about real estate investing? I know I have, but I'm like, how do I get started? What do I do? I'm already too busy. My husband and I went to a Robert Kiyosaki event a long time ago, and we sat through this event, paid a lot of money. And my husband goes, well, you can do this, and you can do this, and you can do that, and you can do this. And I said, well, what are you going to do? And he goes, well, I'm going to go to the courthouse. I said, okay, that's it. I walked out. I said, I don't need another job. So I'm really excited to have Mitch and Maeli Nelson join us today, because they're entrepreneurs and educators. They have completed hundreds and hundreds of fix and flips. So many of you want to get into the real estate business, just like I've been wanting to get into for decades now, but I don't know where to start, and I don't need another job. So they've completed hundreds and hundreds of fix and flips and having amassed a multi-million-dollar rental portfolio. That sounds great. That sounds like music to my ears. I want to do that. That spans the entire United States. They have also documented their investing careers. Now they have their own careers, even though they're husband and wife. And by the way, they are first husband and wife team on Exit Rich. So that's worth celebrating right there. So they have their careers on the YouTube channel, Flipping with Mitch and Maeli. You should go check it out. You should call it M&M.
People call us that all the time.
And I'm Michelle, so we're the triple M's, right? Yep. Which exists to showcase their successes and their failures. It's not all just about success, people. You got failures too. Failures help you grow. And so sharing their success and failures to help others on their journey to begin investing in real estate. But wait, there's more, y'all. Mitch is the best-selling author of Mindset to Millions. Mindset to Millions. 7 Keys to Becoming a Real Estate Millionaire. And I know Maeli really specializes working with women, helping mentor women, helping women get, out of their comfort zone if they're ready to transition from being a stay-at-home mom, which, by the way, is a huge job. Let's not diminish that. But she really helps them get outside of that experience and really grow themselves as an individual and as a career. So welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you both on.
It's an honor to be here, Michelle. Thank you.
What an incredible introduction, too. So flattered.
All right, so let's dig into it. There's a lot of questions to ask, but let's first and foremost, tell me a little bit about your background.
Ooh.
What were you each like as a child?
Ooh, as a child. We're going to go all the way back, huh? I like it.
You're not that old, maybe.
Yeah, right. Not too far. I love it. Actually, so I'll take this first. So my background is very unique. So I actually grew up in an interesting religious cult. And so I was in a scenario where, unfortunately, I was told that all I should be able to do in life is cook, clean, and have babies. So it's more of like an FLDS or Mormon cult. I don't like to attach those together because they were very different, but I do have 22 siblings, so that's very interesting. And
you still have contact with them?
Some of them, unfortunately, a lot of them I don't have.
I mean, it's hard to keep up with 22.
Right, yeah.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, and so until I was 12 years old, I didn't know how to read, write, do any math, I just didn't have any bearing, no schooling whatsoever. And I was told at 11 who I was going to be married to. So it was arranged marriage. With that understanding, and I saw my siblings get married off at a very young age, so I knew what was coming for me. I knew my background. I knew that was my only purpose in life, which is kind of devastating, to be honest, as a woman. Like, that's the only thing I'm good for, right? And so my mom did get.
Well, you know what, though? Most of us haven't been raised in a cult. My heart goes out to you, not being able to read or write till you were 12. But I'm sure you're asking yourself, why did this happen for you and not to you?
Yes.
But a lot of women are stuck in that place where they're still expected. Now they're expected to do it all. Now they're expected to go to work, do the grocery shopping, clean the house, take care of the children. Yep. Arrange school. Now we're, expected to be even more of a superwoman than before.
Right.
So So you didn't end up getting married,
Nope.
right? Because I see Mitch next to
Yeah.
you, and I don't think he's in the couple.
Nope, I didn't. So my mom actually got us out, so my sister and I, and it was an interesting time because she didn't have any money. And just like you were saying, just because I grew up in a cult, I feel like a lot of women can relate to me in the sense that all of us kind of feel like we're trapped, you know what I mean? And unfortunately, the history of society has made it to where we kind of feel like that is all we're good for. We're not, we aren't enough if we're not doing those activities that you just mentioned, right? And we have to obviously get out of that and be like, no, that is not my mission in life. And so watching my mom was really important to me because I learned quickly all the things that I didn't want. So people always go, well, how did you even get to where you are now? And really the answer is contrast brings clarity. And I was able to see all the things that was happening to my mother and how she surrounded herself and how she dealt with money and how she ran her life. And I thought, oh my gosh, I want none of that. Right? Like I want to do all the opposite things. And so I did. That's exactly how I.
And that's a great point. So many people focus on what they want. They don't focus on what they don't want. And I think it's, a lot of people have had horrible childhoods. Many of them have come out amazing entrepreneurs, amazing humans, because they're like, oh, I don't want to be poor. I don't want to live like this. I don't want. And I did that too.
Right.
And so I think that's amazing that you were able to come out of that. Did you have a lot of, what do they call it, deprogramming that you had to go through?
Yes, for sure. And part of it is recognizing that it's okay to be human. And I actually loved that in school, this was definitely something that helped me in business and why I believe I have become a successful business owner. This is a good tip. So take this and, and knot this down. So I loved learning, right? I had to learn how to love learning. And that was really important. But also everything I did was red. Like all of my paperwork, everything that I did when I turned it back into the teachers, it was red, right? Like they were like, this is wrong. This is wrong. Like everything is wrong. And because it was wrong, I went, oh, it's okay to do it wrong. It's okay to learn and keep growing. So the failure was fine for me. And I think that now in my business career.
Well, failure is a step forward.
Right.
It's not a step backward.
But in school,
and
they
it's
don't
only
teach you
in
that.
failure that you grow.
100%. But in school, they don't teach you that, right? So I learned that by myself because of all the red. And it was okay to, to not do it right. But I watched all my friends and they would be so stressed when they got like a couple, red marks. And I'd be like, oh, well, I mean, I guess it's fine, right? But in business, Mitch teaches us all the time, but in business, you are always copying off of other people, right? You're always trying. You're not trying to reinvent the wheel necessarily all the time. You're actually copying.
Oh, I am.
I know you are for sure. But
yeah, so many things have already been done, right? So it's very hard to be unique. But with AI coming out, artificial intelligence is going to make it easier for companies to really gain an edge over their competitors if they start adapting AI. So wow, that's a great story. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So are you done deprogrammed?
Nope. I will always be a student.
It's a lifetime thing, right?
100%. Because
the first the first 1 to 5 years or 7 years of your life really that makes up the rest of your life for your entire life, right? That's what they say.
Yeah. And I think that's why I have to be a business owner for the rest of my life. And that's because I was told no for so long in my childhood. Like, no, you can't do that. You can't do this. You know what I mean? But now if I had a boss, it would be so bad. Do not tell me what to do because watch out. I will prove you wrong. So don't dare me to do something either. I promise I'll do it.
Well, Maeli, you're still probably told no because you're in sales. And anybody in sales is told no.
Yeah.
But I always say, the average is 5 no's. It takes 5 no's to get a yes. So every no is a step in getting a yes and closing the deal.
Right. That's a good book. Go for yes.
All right. So Mitch, we got to open up to Mitch. You're just sitting back there so quietly. Mitch, you have to tell me what your childhood was like as well.
I can't.
I'm sure it's not near as I don't know, exciting, but learning experience that Maeli went through.
I grew up in an upper class home. And in a great neighborhood. We had a lot of luxuries growing up. My family traveled a lot. We had a very good life. And obviously, as a child, you don't really recognize what goes into creating that, right? And so, luckily, my parents are people who taught us to enjoy the luxuries of life, but also taught us to work hard. And I think one of the greatest blessings they gave me was, when I turned 22 and I went out on my own and moved to my own place and got a job. They were obviously there as a safety net for me and as a support, but they weren't like, here's a bunch of money, like go out and start your life kind of thing. It was like, all right, good luck, like let us know if you need any advice, right? That was the kind of support that they offered, which was awesome, because it made me realize quickly, oh, this is actually what real life looks like. Like there's not the luxuries just built in. We're not entitled to those things. And so throughout my 20s, I really kind of got a taste for, I liked what I had, right? And so it was something, by the time I was 27, I was average American. I was making $40,000 a year at 27, which was average at the time. Working 2 jobs, right? Spending all my time working for the men.
You're 27, making $40,000 a year. Okay.
Yep. And living in a 2-bedroom apartment, married to my first wife. And I probably should have
No,
been.
your first wife. There's a story there, but we're not going to get into it on this
No.
episode.
Yeah, we can dig deep.
No, we'll stay shallow. We're going to stay shallow.
Yeah.
we'll share the abridged version, right?
Yeah.
We share the nuggets. But
So
at
y'all came from 2 very different backgrounds, right?
Yeah.
You grew up middle class, I don't know if you said the word wealthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mitch,
Yeah,
wealthy. And
yeah.
you grew up in a cult. What were y'all's associations around money, and how does that work for y'all right now as a married couple and in business?
So I have to say that is probably one of the first things that made me fall in love with Mitch was his abundance mindset. Because I came from a very different background, right? And it was very scarcity. It was hoarder everything because you never know when you're going to get it, right? And to really just open up with, oh, you can have anything you want, you just have to earn it. You can have anything you want, just go do it, right? And I didn't have that, right? Like every part of my body was like, no, like that's very uncomfortable for me. And he was my coach, and so he still is every single day. It really is so great when I start to, like I said, I'm constantly having to learn. Like, oh wait, I'm stepping back into that, mindset where it's debilitating to me rather than that abundance mindset. There's enough for
It's
everyone.
very easy for you to go back in that subconscious.
Yes.
Very
Yeah.
easy. I mean,
So-
that subconscious really directs, everything we do throughout our day. It can if we're not conscious about it.
And you constantly have to work on it, right?
Yeah.
Because like you said,
Absolutely.
it's something that you have to be conscious of and continually work on. It does get easier over time, but it's always there, right?
So Mitch, being raised in a wealthy family, what did you learn associated with money? What was your belief system based upon your parents associated with money?
Like Maeli said, it was an abundance mindset, right? I mean, it was very much and also things weren't handed to me. So there's a distinction there, right? There's a difference
It's a
between
big distinction because there's a lot of wealthy families that have silver spoon babies that are partying up all day and they go through their fortune and now they're on the streets, some of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So I like that.
The lessons that we were taught was you can have anything you want and you can do anything you want if you get educated and work hard.
Right. And then Maeli's, yours was, oh my gosh, hold on to it. Somebody's going to take it from you, right?
Don't spend it, save. I'm very much
Save.
I need to save, which is not what we should be doing, right? You shouldn't be putting money under a couch, and you definitely shouldn't be putting money in a bank and just hold it in a money market. You're losing money with inflation, right? So there was a lot of like, oh, wait, what? I had no idea. I also thought that as a business owner, because I've been a business owner now for 17 years, and my first business was wellness center, but I really thought that I had to save a bunch of money and make a lot of money, but save a bunch of money so that I could eventually go start doing real estate. So that was kind of my pivot. And I was running a solar company actually in California, and I was saving up a bunch of money. Like I was just saving so that, at some point I could take that capital and go buy a multifamily or whatever. And this is like a big deal because everyone is going to go through something in life that transitions their life. And this was it for me. So I thought I had made it. I was the big divisional for the solar company and I was crushing life and I was making a ton of money. And I stepped off the curb wrong, knocking doors, right? Training some of my guys. My left leg goes paralyzed. I was in a wheelchair for 9 freaking months. I was in a wheelchair. And my job was to knock
I just flew out
doors.
a resort in Florida and I was in a boot for 7 weeks and thought I was going to die.
Right?
I can't imagine being in a wheelchair for 9 months.
And that was my job, was knocking doors, like walking.
Yeah.
Right. And I had retired my ex-husband. So there's a whole nother story there. And so he stayed home with the kids And so I was our only income. So anyway, long story short, we lost everything. I foreclosed on my house. We packed up all of our stuff, moved back to Utah, had my back surgery. Thank goodness. It was exploratory surgery.
You hurt your back or your leg? You hurt your back or your leg?
It was my leg that seized up, but it was actually my back that was the
Wow.
issue. They found a huge cyst in my back, removed it. Within 4 hours, I could walk again. It seriously was like, it was so amazing. But it took all of my savings, right? The pot that I was saying, I just kept throwing money in that savings account. So good thing it paid for my surgery because it was exploratory surgery. The problem was I was doing all the things wrong. And that's what really I want to talk about, and, how I found Mitch and all the things. So we packed up all our stuff. We moved back to Utah in the basement of my grandparents' basement and with my 2 kids. And I had nothing to my name. Just suitcases. That was it. Had to start all over again. It was really, right? Like, tucked between my legs, my towel. And so I actually saw a sign that said real estate investor seeks trainee. That was what I saw. And I thought, well, I got nothing to lose, right? I got nothing. So I called that sign, and it was chicken scratch handwriting. And I answered they answer the phone like, oh, you should come to this workshop, blah, blah, blah. And I thought it would be like a rich dad education workshop because I had been to a couple of those. And anyway, I went to this workshop. Happened to be this guy on stage. So, it's a whole nother story. We always say, results not typical. He doesn't marry all of his students. But fast forward, that was really where in 2 hours in that workshop that he did, I learned more about real estate, but more about business specifically than I had in my entire career, 14 years of being a business owner. And I just thought, how could have I been a business owner for 14 years and not know in 2 hours, he completely changed my perspective, changed everything I thought about business and my financial situation specifically. And I was just overwhelmed and thought, oh, I have to do this. I have to get jumped in like head full on into real estate because everyone needs to know the things that I know now. Everyone. And so this is where our story began.
Well, that's awesome. And I did forget to mention that anybody who asks questions, makes comments, and we read it on the air will get 3 chapters of Exit Rich and then 3 chapters of Mitch's book, which is
Mindset to Millionaire.
Mindset to Millionaire. Reminds me of the other book, Mindset Millionaire from T. Harv Eker.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So those are great stories, and a lot of things happen for you, maybe to shape the woman you are today and the entrepreneur you are today. So, a lot of people want to get into real estate, and I got lots of questions coming in, so we're gonna have to make these really go quick. But what is the biggest financial mistake you see people making?
There are several, but the biggest financial mistake people make is that they don't get educated, right? We're told, well, we're all given free education, public education, right? And we're not really taught how to go out and operate our finances. We're taught so very little, and a lot of entrepreneurs don't seek out further education around their finances. I'll give you one good example, and probably the answer to your question. Maeli talked about saving. We were taught one strategy for saving in our free public education, and that was the accumulation strategy, right? The accumulation strategy is the idea that let's tuck money away in savings accounts. Let's tuck it away in, our 401k is one example. It's like we're building nests and like hoarding eggs in the nest, right? Well, with the example of the 401k, we work our entire career stacking eggs up in this nest, and we get to a certain point where we're like, 65 and a half, and we think, I got a pretty good pile of eggs. I'm going to retire, right? You start taking eggs out of the nest at that point, cracking them, using them. You get down to about 75 and you're thinking, okay, things are going pretty good. 85, it's dwindled even more, right? And then you hit 95 and you think, holy crap, hopefully I died before I run out of money.
Right? Yeah. It's more like 85. You're like, I hope I don't die before I run out of money.
Most of us hope we live a long time, but the idea of the accumulation strategy is finite, right? And so we're going to reach the end of our lives when we are not able to go back to work, and we're going to run out of money. And so, one of the big mistakes people make is they save it rather than invest. We should be focused on buying assets, right? Buy the chicken that lays the egg.
Like Sharon Lecter says, assets are sexy.
Yeah.
Sound like
Yeah.
you're my co-author of Exit Rich. Assets are
Yeah.
sexy.
So focus on assets rather than saving. That'd be probably
Yeah, I mean, I do
biggest-
believe you need to have enough working capital in the bank to run your business for a year or two because so many businesses failed during COVID because they did not have any working capital. They were not saving. And so I do believe you have to do that. And I believe you have to have so much working capital for your household, just in case there was an emergency or something that happened. But I
Michelle,
1,000% agree about that.
yeah, I'll give you a good example, just really briefly. There have been times. I mean, look, we all know, entrepreneurs know, it's a roller coaster, right? And Maeli and I are not exempt from riding the roller coaster, and there have been hard times in our business. But we've had assets that we could liquidate that were like savings accounts, right? But they appreciated faster while we didn't need to liquidate them, they were cash flowing. Those are all things that savings accounts won't necessarily provide.
Yeah.
And so I agree with you. You need to have that working capital, right? And you need to have that that security blanket, if you will. But one of the questions that just really shows me that the person is financially uneducated is they'll sometimes ask, well, how much money do you have in your bank account? Right? And they expect this big number, 10 million, 20 million, $25 million in my checking account, right? We don't keep that kind of money liquid and just sit it there because it just collects dust, right? We have for our needs and we have our emergency account, but when we have an excess of cash, we put that into assets, right? So the better question to ask a wealthy individual is, what is your asset? How many assets do you have, or what's the value of the assets that you have?
Or net
Right.
worth. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you 1,000%. I do have a friend that I call him the godfather of Chicago, especially
Nice.
the South Side, because he owns so much multifamily there. But he had some experiences where we were trying to invest in different things in South Africa, and he's like, "Well, I'm not liquid. I'm gonna have to sell some assets."
Right.
So I always think you have to have a balance, right? You have to have your asset producing properties. You want asset producing properties. You don't want assets that are just going to sit there and collect dust.
No.
You want the assets producing properties, but you also want to have some liquidity if there is something you want to invest in, maybe you can't get the financing for or something like that. So I do believe there's got to be some balance there as well. Now, one of the things that I know that you are an expert in is how can small businesses get more money from the IRS? Because you said, Michelle, ask that question.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how can small businesses get more money out of the IRS?
One of the things that I think is underutilized as business owners and as real estate investors is the idea of understanding the tax law, right? We talk about getting educated. Understanding the tax law is so important. And we're not taught that. Again, we're not taught that in our free public education. That's something that we have to seek out knowledge about. But the more knowledgeable you become, the more you realize that the tax code is an incentive program. The most expensive way to pay your taxes is the W-2 tax form. And in contrast, we hear a lot of people talk about how, well, the wealthy don't pay their fair share. Well, it's not that they're charged a different percentage, right? What it's about is about discounts. And those come from the IRS in the form of deductions. A W-2 employee only has access to, 15 deduction categories, and most of them don't even know what those 15 are. But a business owner who also happens to own real estate has access to over 450 deduction categories. There are more deduction categories for those two income generating activities alone than any other income generating activity combined.
So let's put that in the comments, my team. Say that one more time, Mitch.
Which part?
450. So if you're
450, yeah, roughly.
you get
roughly
450 deductions if you're investing
Deduction
in real
category.
estate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Many deductions inside those
And
categories.
so that's the tip that you definitely should write down. If you're a business owner, whether you're tiny and you're just a little guy, or you're a really multi-million dollar empire, you need at least one rental. One rental will change the game for your tax perspective.
One rental. Okay.
Just one.
Let's answer some of these questions. So Jacob
Yes.
says, "Hi, Mitch and Maeli. I just had a small question about getting into real estate. What are some common misconceptions about real estate, and what advice do you have for beginners?"
Ooh. Well, the first thing that I would say is I thought, right, in my story that I had to have a lot of money to go out and start real estate investing. I was 100% wrong. So something that I didn't know is you can actually leverage other people's time, credit, and money. That's crazy to think about. So you could actually right this second go out and partner up with somebody that has a property that's already right. They already have it in their name, in the loan's already in their name, and they might have a 2% interest rate right this second. And you could actually seller finance or subject to that property and take title, right? And so it's still
Mhm.
your property. Give them like a $20,000 down payment. And now you have a rental that's cash flowing every single month. Now you got to
How are
do the
you coming
numbers.
up with that 20,000?
So whatever the down payment is, I like 20,000 because if they're a distressed homeowner, which is what we focus on mostly, so a home that is about to get pre-foreclosed on or foreclosed on, distressed because it's meth, mold, radon, there's a lot of reasons why people would just go, I have to leave, I can't stay in this house any longer.
Mhm.
And so if they're in a position where they're like, I can't do this anymore, we show up as heroes, right? Because I was in that position. I know I lost my house. If had somebody like Mitch knocked on my door or myself, I would have been like, thank you, thank you, thank you, because it would have fixed my credit, right? It would have healed my
Yeah.
situation. I couldn't have lived there anymore, but at least I wouldn't have had a foreclosure on my name, you know? And
Right.
so that's so powerful that they're usually behind about $20,000 to $30,000 on their mortgage. I see somebody else talking about, because of COVID, there was a lot of variances where they didn't have to call the note due on their mortgage. But all of a sudden, guess what, people? This is the time to start real estate investing because the note is being called due. We have to help hundreds of thousands of people get out of this bad situation because they don't have $30,000 just sitting around. They don't. And they have a ton of
Right.
equity in their house, and we can show up and be their hero and be like, we got you, right?
Well, you're
And
going to have a lot more properties coming available, during this economy.
yeah.
Stefan asked, how do you approach finding the right partners, and what advice do you have for maintaining successful business relationships? Because we can all go out there and find partners all day long, but I've been burned by partners. A lot of people have been burned by partners. I got a lot of my clients have been embezzled by their business partners and even family members. And so, how do you find that right partner, and how do you maintain that successful relationship?
Yeah, I always like to say knowledge mitigates risk, and so you'll hear us preach about get educated around whatever area, right? And that's true of strategies on a high level. That's also true of partners or specific deals. In our case, real estate deals that we're working on, or if you're buying a business, do your due diligence. We saw a kind of a fad that happened in the economic boom of 2020 and 2021.
Mhm.
Where these wholesalers were selling off properties where it's like, give us a non-refundable $5,000 check, you have to close tomorrow. It's like, well, when can I do my due diligence on the property? Oh, you can't, you just buy it, right? Those aren't my deals, because when
That
you
sounds like a
zoom in,
con.
yeah,
Right? For sure. Yeah.
exactly. When you
Buyer
zoom in,
beware.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So when you zoom in, knowledge mitigates risk. So do your due
Knowledge
diligence.
mitigates risk. Put that in the comments, please, my team. Knowledge
Yeah.
mitigates
Um,
risk.
and also, there is always risk. You can never mitigate all the risk, and you can't control that other person. So you're entering into a relationship, that could fail. But like we've been talking about, sometimes failures are worth more in their educational experience than they are in the money that they provide.
That's
Right?
a good point too. Sometimes failures are worth more. All right. So Emily asked, how do you approach risk? How do you suppose risk taking in your business decisions? Are there any principles or guidelines you follow when evaluating potentially risky opportunities? That's a good one.
I didn't see this. Is it Emily's?
Yeah, it says, how do you approach risk taking in your business decisions? Are there any principles or guidelines you follow when evaluating potentially risky opportunities?
Yeah, so kind of just, back to educational. So I am in charge. So Mitch and I, right, this is kind of unique. We run a very large business empire together. And people always go, how do you do that? Like I'd kill my husband or vice versa. And that is probably true for a lot of people. But how we divide up our responsibilities is very unique, I guess. But I am in charge of all acquisition. And so I find the properties. I'm doing all the analyzation on the properties. I'm verifying that these properties are going to either cash flow or they're going to obviously make us a profit on the back end when we're fixing and flipping the property. And so I have to be very diligent on my numbers.
Mhm.
And so that is my expertise, is my ARV. So you make money on your after repair value. So that is what I'm constantly doing. So an ARV is, you don't make money when you buy the property most of the time, right? You make money when you put tenants in it, or you make money when you sell the property on the back end once you've remodeled a home. And so that is very important, is to know your strategies. That's a longer conversation and a lot more information that needs to go into that to answer it completely. But I do actually have on our show an entire work, I break down exactly how to run numbers.
Yes,
So feel
everybody
free to do
should
that.
follow them on their YouTube channel. What's the name of that channel again?
Flipping with Mitch and Maeli.
Flipping with Mitch and Maeli, and we'll make sure to include it in the show notes. So
Thank you.
Thank you for the.
Yeah, thank you. And actually tonight we have a YouTube live if you wanted to jump on. And I'm actually showing people how to write up contracts. So how to actually make an offer and how to get somebody to accept a contract. So if that's interesting to you, it's live. Jump on, come say hi.
now, do y'all do more flips or do you do more rentals?
Kind of.
Well, our primary investment strategy is rentals. Our goal is to acquire rentals. What we found is that people are individuals, private money. People are willing to lend money for 6 months, 9 months, less likely to lend money for 30 years. So, and we're talking private individuals, right? Not banks. So we found it really easy to use other people's money, run a fix and flip business, take our portion of the profit, and funnel that into our rental portfolio. So we do both. We have done more flips than rentals.
And that's just because we get to use and leverage other people. But I do find that, like, how exciting that if you were listening and you're like, oh my gosh, I'd love to start real estate investing, but like, I don't know how. Perfect. People come and partner with us, right? And then now they are with people who are very experienced. So they're obviously they're not so scared that their money's just going to go fall, or we're going to do something wrong, right? There's risk. So we're not saying that, but it is helpful that most of our students do partner with us and we encourage it because it's like, yeah, your first couple deals, why don't you learn the process and not just go figure it out on your own? Because, well, we all know that those are very expensive mistakes that we can make.
Yeah, and there's a lot of work that goes into it. It's not as simple as they're making it sound. And that's what my husband said.
Yeah.
You can do that and then I'm like, no, I'm out.
Yeah.
I need a done for me is what I need.
Yes, and that's it, right? Somebody that knows what they're doing, they're going to do it and just let the money ride, right?
Right.
I do think that understanding cash flow is very important. So if, people are looking at this, they really do want to look at, as a business owner or just an individual, as a business owner, a lot of people don't realize, but you can, and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, you can actually only have up to 10 homes in your name. So if you're using the traditional lending institution and you're trying to go get rentals, that's a really big problem because you're tapped at 10 rentals.
Right.
And that's not retirement for most people. I mean, 10 rentals probably is only going to be making you, less than $5,000 a month. Well, that's not a fantastic retirement right now. And so something that I highly recommend and what we're talking about with rentals is, and how we acquire all of our rentals is through seller financing, leveraging other people's mortgages. Because, right, at the end of the day, we have to be able to have hundreds of rentals. Can't live off of 10. That's not going to work.
So Hayden asked, how do you stay up to date with changing market trends and ensure your strategies remain relevant?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, an important factor of that is follow things like interest rates. I'm not a big news watcher necessarily, but I do follow the financial markets. I do follow business news, and it's important to stay up on that. But one key I will say in addition to that is your real estate investing strategy or even your business investing strategy should not be solely independent on one type of market. You should educate yourself well enough that you can operate and have strategies for any market condition. Then all you have to do is react to the market, right? It's not a catastrophic, like, we're not making money anymore because the market changed. So make sure you're educated well enough around the strategies within your particular business that you can make those adjustments if the market's going up or if the market's going down.
Emily asked, what advice would you offer those who might be hesitant to invest in real estate to help them really make informed decisions?
It's a really good question. And I'm so actually glad you asked that because at the end of the day, I hear it all the time, at least. Oh my gosh, real estate is so risky, right? Real estate is so risky. But again, if you know the numbers, that this is it. It's not about how pretty the property is. It's not about how cute or how, it smells or any of those things. It's about the numbers. So my advice to you is to learn how to run your numbers down to the decimal so that you can know what you're going to be making, right? And yes, there's always little things that can come up, but it is so much easier to, if you're creating numbers and you're setting aside for the what ifs, right? You're creating an extra $10,000 kind of slush fund for the what ifs. that will save you a lot as well. And then the biggest thing that I think we do that a lot of people don't do is the due diligence. Like Mitch said, we spend, between $1,500 to $2,000 on every single property we buy because of the inspection. And it's because we are testing meth, mold, radon, every little tiny thing you can possibly think of, and sewer scopes, right? And people are like, oh my gosh, why would you do that when the home is only X old, or it's only, you'd be so surprised, guys, in America specifically, how high the meth is and how high the meth or the radon, especially in Utah, Park City areas. I mean, it is, and we obviously invest all over the nation, but meth and mold and radon, those are great opportunities as investors to get a huge discount because we know how to mitigate those problems. We know how to handle those at a very cost effective scenario. But for an individual who is trying to sell their home, that could be catastrophic. I mean, they're going to get a nasty, paper slapped on their wall or on their door saying, contaminated, and the health department's shutting it down and they can't go back in their house. And now they have to disclose that they have meth or mold or radon or issues in their home to try and sell their house. This is a great opportunity for us to, know what we're doing and be able to get a great discount on something that might not actually cost us a ton of money to mitigate because we know what we're doing. So that would be, I think, a great place to understand is just do your due diligence and get a proper inspection.
So a lot of the things that you and Mitch have been talking about is do your due
Yeah.
diligence, right? Do your research. You're paying $1,500 to $2,000 just for the due diligence. Know your numbers, right?
Yep.
And a lot of people are probably wondering, well, why is Michelle doing a show right now on real estate investment? Because real estate is a business, and so many so many real estate investors, they run the real estate business as really not a business. They just run it as, hey, I get the real estate, I do this and this and this. They don't know their numbers. They don't really know what the portfolio is. They don't know how to build that business for exit, because real estate businesses also sell, and real estate businesses sell for a pretty high multiple. So you want to build your real estate business as a business, and you want to ensure that you are reading Exit Rich and making sure that you're building your business on those 6 P's that we talk about. What were you going to add on that, Mitch?
Oh, no, you said it. I was agreeing with you. I think the quote that comes to
okay.
mind from an early mentor that I had is, if you treat it like a hobby, it'll pay you like a hobby. If you treat it like a business, it'll pay you like a business.
And a lot of real estate investors some fail because they're not treating it like a business.
Yep.
And it gets away from them. And so you don't want to just treat it like a business. You want to run it like a business. You want to build the business on having the right people in the right seats, making sure that you have multiple profit centers. One thing that I really like about Mitch and Maeli is they're not just investing in real estate. They also have, and they're flipping and rentals. Plus, they have a real estate coaching company where they really get in there and teach other individuals like me who don't know anything. I mean, my core competency is fixing and selling companies, and theirs is real estate. So I would never try to do this on my own. So they also have that real estate school, and then really building that business to make sure, hey, I have the right people. I have multiple profit streams. I have my processes buttoned up. A lot of real estate companies don't have their processes. But if you're listening to Maeli right now, she sounds like she's got those processes buttoned up when she's looking for those acquisitions. And then you want to make sure that on proprietary, you have some proprietary assets. They have a huge, Mitch and Maeli on YouTube has a huge show with a huge following, and you want to build those assets. Plus, you want to make sure that you have patrons. Patrons would be their investors, right? So they have a pool of investors, and they're always adding upon that, and they don't have customer concentration. So 80% of their revenues should not come from 20% of their investors. It needs to be diversified. Plus, they're also getting buyers and sellers. There's a lot of moving parts to what they do, and they're profitable. So real estate is a business. Here's another question here that I want to ask real quick. So Stefan asked, what are some legal pitfalls that investors should be aware of, and how can they mitigate these risks? I did not ask that one yet,
Yeah,
right?
no, I'll go ahead and take that one. I deal with more of that end of it. So first off, aces in their places. If you are a business owner running a business, that does not make you an attorney. So you want to have a good attorney, right? If you are your own attorney, let's put it this way. If you think it's expensive to hire a professional, try hiring an amateur. It'll end up costing you more in the long run, and you'll probably end up having to hire the professional anyway, right? So make sure you
Yeah,
have a
and
good
you can't just
attorney.
be any attorney, right, Mitch? You got to make sure it's an attorney that specializes in real estate
Yeah, absolutely. In our
because
case, real estate or
different core competencies.
exactly. Yes. You need to make sure that they're familiar with your area of business. You need to make sure that you're structured correctly. And with that comes educating yourself on the different types of structures. I'm talking about entities and the ways that those protect you, and making sure that your goals align with the protections that you're choosing when you structure your company. Keeping your books clean, making sure that you have, your corporate minutes every year, and just following the rules. But the business is in a lot of ways a game, right?
Yeah.
And you can't play the game effectively if you don't understand the rules. So the best business owners are the ones that know the rules and follow the rules, and in a lot of cases, learn how to use the rules to their advantage.
Right. And if you don't know the rules, make sure you find an expert who does.
That's right.
And I always tell my attorneys, because let me tell you something, attorneys can give you bad advice too. And I've
Yeah.
had lots of attorneys give me horrible advice that I paid thousands upon thousands of dollars to. So now I always ask them, is this ironclad? Is this bulletproof?
Yeah.
This can hold up in federal court or any court.
And give me examples on how it will.
Oh, well, and
Yeah,
I have one attorney that says, well, I'm just trying to get a deal negotiated here. I'm like, I'm not paying you to negotiate a deal. That's what I do.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm paying you to make sure I'm protected.
Yes.
And if this goes to court, I win.
Amen.
Right.
Yep. And
Yeah.
that's so important. Actually, with that, because of what Mitch just said, can we play a fun game real quick?
Sure.
Okay, let's play a fun game.
I wish I could see y'all.
I know, dang it. It's okay. We're gonna roll with the punches here. So we like to ask this question, and this will be just simply, it's a cash flow. So if you're running a business or if you are running a real estate investing business, either or, it doesn't matter. So I want you to take a second and go, okay, I'm gonna run these numbers in my head. Okay, if you're listening, so I want you to play along, and then you can answer in the chat. So go ahead and ask the question, babe.
One of the things that we always talk about is cash flow is king, right? We never want to focus on what the business is necessarily bringing in. We always want to focus on cash flow as the bottom line. So would you rather have a business that brings in $10 million a month, but spends $10 million a month? Or would you rather have an asset that brings in $1 million a month, but spends $500,000 a month?
Wow.
Which one would you
I won't answer, obviously. I know the answer, but comment on that.
Comment.
But I think it's
'cause
common
that's a
sense,
valid
but common
question.
sense is not so common anymore.
Well, and the reason we pose that question, and it is common sense, right? The reason we pose that question is because so many people are focused on what their revenue is. They don't always look at what the cash flow is, right? So I have a lot of students that come and say, well, look, this particular real estate deal has 5 doors. It's a 5-plex, and it brings in $10,000 a month. It's like, well, okay, but that's important, but what's the cash flow, right?
Right.
Always focus on the cash flow, and that's, I think, comes from when Maeli was talking about it's about the numbers.
It's about the numbers.
And you make
Know your
and Mitch, sorry, Maeli, I didn't mean to cut you off, but Mitch, you made, and I can't see y'all, so it's hard to know.
Yeah.
But Mitch, you made a very good point there. A lot of business owners are like, woo, I'm making $10 million, I'm making $20 million. But at the end of the day, and this is what I talk to my clients about, it doesn't matter what you make. It matters what you take home. It matters what your EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, what your EBITDA is at the end of the day, because they're all like, oh, well, I'm making $10 million. So if I can get paid, 6 multiple off of $10 million, I'm going to sell my company for $60 million. But wait, you're losing money on paper.
Yeah.
Even when we normalize the financials, you're like making $200,000 a year. So nobody's going to pay you a multiple of revenue unless you're a SaaS company. So that's a very good point that he just made. And that's why I always tell my clients, when you are growing profit centers and revenue streams, and you're growing your business geographically in different verticals, etc., you better make sure that when you're growing that business, you really analyze what that COGS, expenses are going to be, to make sure you're going to profit from that. Because so many people get stuck in a trap where they're building their business to increase revenues, but they end up decreasing their EBITDA.
Exactly.
And so what Mitch and Maeli are talking about, I agree so much. I mean, it's like people go out and want to buy $100,000 car. Well, if you take that same $100,000 how many properties could we get from that?
Ooh, I love that. In fact, we actually have an episode on our channel that shows you, hey, because we drive really nice, fast cars, are expensive, right? Whatever. But people are like, but doesn't that go against what you teach? And it's like, no, 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 no. Our rule in our household is you can have whatever you want if you have an asset that pays for it.
You
So
can have
we actually have
whatever you want if you have an
yeah.
asset to pay for it. That is worth putting in the comments, team.
Yes. And so I have, I have a rental that pays for my fast, supercar, and Mitch has a threeplex that pays for his fast car. So we're always, we teach actually that in that YouTube video on how we structured that. But yeah, I mean, buy a chicken, right? Buy something that's actually going to produce asset.
Yeah, 1,000%. Because so many want to go in and buy the house of their dreams and spend millions of dollars instead of taking those millions, buying a bunch of assets that will produce the income to buy and pay for your dream house. All right. So there's even a couple more questions here, I think. Stefan says, from your experience, what are some effective ways to manage and balance multiple business ventures without sacrificing quality or focus?
I think this one's worth an answer from both of us because we both have experience in this. The short answer, Stefan, is don't. Focus on the business that's going to make you money, right? However, that would be a hypocritical answer from me because Maeli and I do run multiple businesses. But the way that we've been able to balance it is by making sure that those businesses are in the same vertical. That way, when we're doing an activity like lead generation, which you have to do in every business, including real estate, when we're doing lead generation, we can be talking to the same lead and filter them based on are we going to be buying your house? Is Maeli going to be listing your house? Are you potentially someone who wants to learn about investing? Right? These are all conversations that we can do one activity and generate leads for the same people because the multiple businesses we run are in the same vertical. So. Short answer,
yeah.
Try to focus. Long answer, if you're going to do it, try to keep them in the same vertical so that you're not having to have 3 different jobs. You just do one thing that feeds all the businesses.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's...
I'm sorry. I will give the same answer to that when you're adding additional revenue streams to your current business, right? You want to make sure it's synergistic. If you own a restaurant, you don't want to go own a landscape company. You might want to own a private label brand. And something that's synergistic. So Emily asked, how can investors prepare for potential downturns or economic challenges to ensure their investment remains resilient? Because that happens. Like, remember the 2008 bubble?
Oh,
yes.
It
was a crash. I'm sorry, the 2008 crash.
Yeah. Maeli's looking at me because my part of the business is how we structure the money.
Yep.
So I will answer this one as well. So you have to have multiple exit strategies. You can never, and I'll use real estate as an example, but this applies to any business. So whenever we're looking at a fix and flip, Maeli and I just passed up on a fix and flip that had the potential of making us $200,000 in profit. And it would take us about 9 months to flip. $200,000 we passed up on. And the reason is because it wouldn't have worked as a rental, a long-term rental. It wouldn't have worked as a short-term rental, right? And those are our 2 primary exit strategies that we look at. So what if, what if we bought this house and 3 months into the project, the market changes, which it did recently, right? It would have changed on us and we would have been in trouble. Because if we only have one exit strategy, and that is sell it for more than what we put into it, and we get to the back end of the project, and now the market's changed, and the market value is lower than what we spent, our only option is to lose money. So make sure you're structuring deals in a way where, you have plan A, but you also have plan B, C, and D, and so forth. That's going to protect you. And then obviously learn more than one strategy, right? Because when the market changes, you should just be able to react to that and pull a different skill set out of your tool belt.
Well, there are a lot of people have lost a lot of money in real estate. How do you avoid that?
Yeah, something I'll toot on Mitch's own horn here because so he actually invented something called the debt equity blend, and I do want. Unfortunately, you'd have to see it to understand it. I don't think you can just talk about it here. So I highly encourage you to reach out to us on any of our platforms and be like, what the heck is the debt equity blend? And then allow us to actually explain this to you and break down numbers with you. because the debt equity blend will keep you safe in any economy. It doesn't matter what's going on, your money will feel very safe. And it's because of how the money is structured so that you're never all debt. And the all debt people is what really gets you in trouble. So
I'm sure you're familiar with that concept, Michelle, as you've been operating businesses. You never want all of your capital to come from all debt or all equity, right? You want a healthy blend of that. And that's true in real estate too. If you're using, especially if you're using mostly other people's money, like we do in our fix and flip business, a lot of people make the mistake of going and structuring all debt, but that gets them in trouble when markets change. So we structure a blend of debt and equity to purchase our real estate.
So Hayden, and we might have already touched on this a little bit, but Hayden's asking what are some trends you've observed in the real estate market, and how do those trends impact potential investors?
yeah,
There's so many trends.
There's so many
from
trends.
economic trends to design trends to,
Yes.
and we have to be up on all of them, right?
Yeah.
They all affect us.
They definitely do. I do think that right now, something that we're focusing on because of my background and my passion, we are creating these really cool host homes for women. And there's a bunch of trends coming in to generate a lot of income, actually, to help these individuals either from a step down program, whether it's sobriety or some type of drug abuse. People, women, and children, it doesn't matter, men that are coming from an abusive situation, whether it's a lack of, their childhood, maybe abusive, kind of where my background came from, or whether it's just an abusive relationship that they're in now, to sex trafficking, to there's all sorts of really horrific things that have been happening to specifically women. That's my focus. But obviously men are in a scenario where they can be in, there's other homes for them. But that is a trend right this second.
Well, men get, teenage boys get human trafficked too.
Yes, exactly.
Not just women.
Yeah, oh, exactly. Which
Girls.
that's why I stated, right, my focus is this. And the reason why it's my focus, and I'm kind of creating this trend for at least our area and wanting it to go nationally, because there's no homes really for women right now. There is actually quite a few men homes, and it's because for whatever reason, I mean, I probably know the reason, but men homes are easier to manage. Women homes are very difficult to manage because we're super catty and we don't get along. And there's been all these
Who's catty?
women, evidently.
That's very true.
Yeah. And so there's
Very
very few women homes to provide this, like this scenario to serve these women. And so that's a trend that we're trying to create right now. To help these individuals. So that's a trend. You can actually create a trend. You don't even have to just rely on the market.
I like that. That's why we say create your own economy.
Amen. Yes.
Don't worry about where the economy is headed. Create your own economy. Jacob asks, how do you determine when to hold onto an investment versus when to sell?
Yeah. So Jacob, a lot of that's going to be subjective. Some people have certain goals. Some people have the idea that I want to create massive income and I want to do it quickly, right? So their whole idea is going to be, I'm going to look for properties that would be, or businesses, assets in general, that I can buy, add value to, turn around and sell at a profit, right? And other people might have the goal of, hey, I want to build a long-term retirement nest egg that's just, a portfolio of assets that are just going to perform. So primarily, Jacob, that comes down to your specific goals and is subjective to you. However, the market can also dictate that. Like I mentioned earlier about exit strategies, we have been in deals where we bought it thinking it was going to be a short-term hold, that we'd add value to it, turn around and sell it for a profit. The market changed on us, or something else happened that caused us to not be able to sell it at a profit, and we converted that into a hold. Now, luckily, in every scenario, we've been in a situation where we created those exit strategies from the beginning. So all we had to do was execute on them. But primarily, it's subjective. Secondarily, the market will indicate that to you.
I love how Mitch keeps talking about exit strategies. Exit Rich. You see the book behind me?
Mm-hmm.
You got to always build your real estate business to be sustainable, scalable, and one day sellable. Even if you don't think you're selling now, you never know what the future holds. And a lot of people come to me and it's too late. So build that sellable real estate business. All right, question for me. What are your predictions for real estate market in the next few years? And what advice do you have for investors looking to thrive in this evolving landscape?
One trend, or something that I see happening, is that nightly rentals, short-term rentals, Airbnbs of that nature are going to come to a screeching halt. I don't.
Really?
Yes, I don't think there's a lot of areas right now that are shutting them down rapidly. I
It's
mean,
because of regulation.
yeah. So, Vegas, for instance, was the first one, I think, area to be like, no Airbnbs, no nightly, no short-term rentals, because of the hotels have such a huge, pull. And
It's political.
it's very political. And so there's a lot of areas right now, hundreds of areas that are just every day I get another notification saying, hey, this city, this county, this state, the state can just come out and say no short-term rentals. There's a couple of them. So I do
That's
think that,
scary. That's really scary. And those are the
yeah,
things you have to look for when you get into business and when you
yep,
invest in real estate. You got to try to predict the future as much as possible. And I assure you, a lot of investors did not see that coming.
yeah, yep. And so, yeah,
None of us have a crystal ball, Michelle. Isn't that? I mean, you know this, right?
No,
None of us
I know,
have a
I
crystal
know.
ball.
But I always say, think about the worst, the worst, the worst, the worst, the
That's
worst,
yeah,
the
right.
worst
Yeah.
things that can
Hope for
happen.
exactly.
the best, but prepare for
And
the
hope for the best. Yeah. And that's kind of how I look at deals, business deals, is what's the worst thing that can happen? What's the most likely thing that can happen? What's the best thing that can happen?
Yeah, 100%.
And is it too much risk, or is it still a good deal for me? And so how can investors identify emerging markets and capitalize on these changes?
It's numbers. Now, I will say one thing I have learned is you can invest in real estate in any market condition, in any geographic market. There are deals. There are deals everywhere. There is in every city multiple people distressing a home that just for you, so that you can come in and add value to it and either sell it or rent it out, right? But whether it's subjective and you're like, I want to invest in my hometown, it's about the numbers. Whether it's I
Mm.
want to go find the best place in the country, well, it's about the numbers, right? And then in that case, you would look for higher incomes, lower crime rates, growing the numbers of their growth numbers, right? High growth. You would focus on the metrics and the data, and let the data make the decisions, right? As investors, we never ever, and this is true if you're investing in businesses or in real estate, whatever your asset class, never make emotional decisions.
Yep.
Decisions should always be driven by data and numbers.
Yeah, a lot of people actually get mad, specifically at me, probably me too, but because they're like, "No, I love this deal!" Like they're so excited about it because it's so cute, and the house is just perfect, and it's in their hometown, and it's
I like
maybe,
the lady that lives there.
yeah, I
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
neighbor, whatever it might be. It's like they just fall in love with the property and or the business in a lot of your cases. If you're falling in love with the business idea, that's fantastic. If you're falling in love with the house, that's not a good idea. Fall in love with the numbers, because you will get very hurt if it's based on, but it's so cute. Nope, that's not gonna work.
That's right. It's always about the numbers. You got to pay attention to the numbers. So we're running against the clock here. So let me ask you, what tips do you have for married couples working together? Because I worked with my husband, but what tips do you have for married couples?
Ooh, I will go first. So I think for me, having very clear expectations. So communication, right? And that's just in marriage in general, right? That's a tip. But definitely when it comes to business, I think having clear expectations of what the other person is expected to do of the
Mm.
business, and then stay in your lane, right? Because if I have, just in our fix and flip world, for instance, that type of business, my job is very specific. I find the properties, I run all the numbers, I make the offer on the property, and I get it accepted. Once it's accepted and it's through that proportion of our business, I turn it over then to Mitch, and then Mitch runs his numbers. He finds the money, right? So he's the equity partner guru, right? So he finds the money, and then he funds the property, and we close on the property. So those are that is very, there's a clear line, and I know when I've done something wrong because it's in my element of my business, and vice versa. He knows his deadlines. He knows when it's got to close. He knows, right? But then we have to kind of come together and figure out negotiation tactics on a specific property. We come together when it's talking about timelines, and it's like, well, can you extend this? Can you? So we do have to work together in the sense of making sure there's balance on the specific acquisition, And then once we have it under contract and we purchased it, I do all the design. I'm coming up with the new trends and what's happening and what the market looks like, because I'm in the field, right? I'm looking at all these properties every single day. That is my job. Whereas Mitch is behind the scenes more so. And so then from there, he will go, okay, well, I will make sure that we're on budget, we're on time, right? He runs the construction side. We own a construction company. So that's, really keeping clear.
So you own a construction company too.
Yes.
So they're
Vertical.
strategic,
Vertical.
y'all. They're strategic. Vertical.
Yep.
Do you own a
Yep.
management company too?
Not yet. It's on the list.
So my brokerage
So-
does have a property management company.
So that's important to stay in line. All right, Mitch, real quick.
Yeah. Respect. Respect is the biggest thing.
Respect.
Maeli mentioned drawing those clear lines between responsibilities. That's important. And we have a little saying, in Maeli's responsibility, she's number one and I'm her number two. So when it's in Maeli's realm and she needs help, I recognize that I'm the number two. I'm the assistant in this case, right? But if it's in my wheelhouse, my area of responsibility, I'm the number one and she's the number two. And we respect each other in that way. We've had to create these systems for ourselves. It doesn't just happen. You've got to do it intentionally to be able to work together as a couple. And so you have to have these conversations and develop these systems. And sometimes they fail and you have to create new systems. But communication and respect.
Do y'all talk business at home?
Yes.
My husband always said, do not talk business when you get home. I'm like, well, that's impossible for me.
Right? Yeah. No.
Impossible. All right. So give me 3 tips for anyone thinking or looking into invest in real estate and they're a newbie. They've never done it like myself. I own real estate, but tell me 3 tips.
Well, we've already talked about the 3 tips that I'm going to share. That is number 1, get educated. Don't go out and try this and think, we'll give it a shot, right? It's a lot more difficult and there's a lot to risk if you don't know what you're doing. So don't gamble, get educated, and be an educated investor. Number 2 is work hard. Hard work is
Well, what if you're an
irreplaceable.
entrepreneur trying to diversify like me? I don't have the work to put in it, which is why I walked out of Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah. Then you find partners, right? And you leverage relationships.
Yep.
There is a place for people who are in a position where they're like, hey, I'm making massive amounts of money in my business. I want to put in real estate, but I don't have the time to go learn a whole new skill. Well, then that's a great opportunity to partner with somebody who already has that skill.
Yep.
And can go
And I truly believe that entrepreneurs should diversify. Like I'm diversified in different businesses, stock market, etc. But and I do have real estate, but I believe you really should be balanced and you should be diversified in all your portfolios. All right. We will add all of their social media to our comments on social media. Plus, we'll make sure it goes into the show notes. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Exit Rich. I appreciate your patience. Thank you. Please share this with your network, your fellow entrepreneurs, anyone that's looking to invest in real estate and or run a business on real estate. Please share this with your network. And make sure you subscribe to Exit Rich. Until I see you next time, next Wednesday, we'll have another amazing guest. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Exit Rich podcast. Don't forget to check out Michelle Seiler Tucker's Build to Sell Blueprint books and Exit Rich, along with more blogs, videos, and resources at exitrichpodcast.com. Be sure to connect with Michelle on Facebook or LinkedIn and stay tuned for her next episode by subscribing in your favorite podcast player.